regardless how I feel about this show, the name Space Force, it's pretty freaking awesome. What is up, Netflix fans? Welcome back to my channel. This Friday, Space Force is dropping. Today we are talking Season 1 non-spoiler review, so I need your comments down below. Are you looking forward to this? If you have seen it, what did you think about it? And let's get right into it. So, in Space Force, a decorated pilot with dreams of running the Air Force, four-star General Mark Naird, played by Steve Carell, is thrown for a loop when he finds himself tapped to lead the newly formed 6th branch of the U.S. Armed Forces, Space Force. Gotta put the emphasis like Peter Griffin. Space Force. Roadhouse. So obviously the talk around Space Force is you have Steve Carell returning with Greg Daniels, who is our guy from The Office and Parks and Rec and The Simpsons. And did I just talk about this on this channel? Oh yeah, because he recently had Upload come out on Amazon. And you know what? I was a fan of Upload. I had a ton of fun with that show. So that coming into Space Force, knowing it's reuniting these two awesome individuals together, Carell is also credited as a creator on this show. So a bit more influence going into it this time around. And I'm going to try my best to refrain from the obvious comparison throughout this review. How does it compare to The Office? Austin, is it The Office in space? Is it the same thing, something different? I could go that route, absolutely, but I want Space Force, and this is what I wanted going into the show. I want Space Force to stand alone, to be its own thing, to be a new thing, and for Steve Carell to not just play Michael Scott again. Now, if he would have played Michael Scott again, I wouldn't have had an issue with it because I love Michael Scott. The Office, one of, if not my favorite show of all time, but you have an opportunity to do something new and different here. So I'm okay with the fact that they went a bit more of a cinematic route here. I'm okay with the fact that it's not shot in the same style or vein as Parks and Rec and The Office. And I'm absolutely okay with this cast of characters because our cast is tremendous, and we'll get right into that here in just a second. But it really all comes down to the character of Mark Naird, played by Steve Carell. He's uprooting his family. He moves to a remote base in Colorado where he and this team of scientists and quote-unquote spacemen are tasked by the White House with getting American boots on the moon, again, in a hurry, in achieving total space dominance. But here's the thing. It's not as okay, it doesn't sound easy, but it's not as easy as you would think because there's a bit of competition within that. Maybe there are some things that go on within the organization that prevent them from reaching what they believe they can reach at the beginning of the show. And then there is that constant conflict, not only with Mark's character and what's happening within the Space Force, but some stuff going on at home. His relationship with his wife, played by Lisa Kudrow, and his daughter, who was a standout, a surprise in the show because A, they focus on her so much, and B, Diana Silvers is genuinely good here. She's impressed me in the past. She continues to do that with this show, and the cast is not the weakness here. Obviously, you have Owen Daniels, you have Noah Emmerich, you have John Malkovich, Ben Schwartz, who is hilarious. So you got a little bit of Office, you have a little bit of Parks and Rec with his character playing similar-esque to what he does in Parks and Rec with John Ralphio, but at the end of the day, a bit more of a dominant role here. Back to Malkovich, by the way, who is just fantastic. He commands every scene, as you would expect from an actor of his caliber, and it was just really nice to see Fred Willard in there one last time. As you guys know, he recently passed away, and seeing him on screen really got me emotional. Jimmy O. Yang is really good as Dr. Chan. Tawny Newsome as Angela. We focus on her. She gets the spotlight every now and then. She provides us a fun and charming character, especially when what actually happens, and you get to see a bit of success come from not only her, but a couple of characters that you're rooting for, and the overarching story. Austin, you said no Office comparisons. Okay, a couple more times. The overarching story is what distinguishes this from shows that we would think to compare this to, because Parks and Rec and The Office, they have these individual episodes, and it feels like you can just throw one on and watch it whenever, right? Well, with this show, even though the first couple of episodes, in a way it feels like that, but once you start getting into the plot, it kind of takes over, and we have to see this chronologically. We have to see this play out. And where we leave off, well, it's interesting to see what's going to happen in Season 2, I'll say that, but you expect something going in, not only the obvious comparisons, but you expect it to be this laugh-out-loud and hilarious show due to its cast and due to the crew? Well, more often than not, and even though on IMDb it's described as a comedy, 30-minute episodes, that seems like something that would provide you a lot of laughs. It was an easy-to-binge show, I'll say that much. It's not as funny as I wanted it to be, and I was a bit underwhelmed when it came to the comedy overall. When the jokes hit, they really hit. And the timely aspects of the show, they work very well now. We'll have to see how it holds up. And one thing that I was worried about, I didn't want it to be overly in-your-face political. I'm going to lean to one side or the other. And there are some obvious comparisons to what goes down in our own government because Space Force, this is, in its own strange and slightly comedic way, a parody. So it's playing on what's happening in real life. It's playing on tropes that we've seen in movies and shows before with people in these kinds of divisions within the government. And in that vein, I think it really worked. But then you strip it down and you look at the characters and you look at how they were developed throughout these 10 episodes and how much we can relate to a lot of them. And I didn't feel that development or depth for some of these supporting players that come into prominence later on in the season. They give you a couple of scenes here and there, but I wasn't a huge fan of the balance in Space Force. It feels like it doesn't know what it wants to be in the first couple of episodes. Does that sound familiar? Well, if you look at a show like The Office, Season 1, while some fantastic moments, as a whole, it wasn't as strong as the rest of the show. And the last time I make a comparison, I promise, Space Force feels the same way. Some really good things within this show that I'm excited about for the future. Some awesome characters. Mark Naird is really good. Steve Carell is not playing the character that some people will expect. He's a bit more grounded. He's more gruffled. He is unaware in certain situations, and that provides for some comedy for sure. And I think he finds himself at the end of episode 2. He starts to discover who this character is, and he knows how to play it. He plays things comedically throughout the show, and sometimes it works. Other times, maybe it goes on too long. A couple of times he breaks into song, and we saw that in the trailer. Well, those scenes tend to drag a little bit, even though I'm not going to lie, I had those songs stuck in my head. I'm singing them right now. And Steve Carell's funny because he's Steve Carell. John Malkovich is funny because he's John Malkovich. Ben Schwartz. You feel that way about these actors because you love these actors. Well, when it comes to the characters, I didn't get enough from their stories. The best part of Mark Naird is the fact that you explore the relationship with his daughter, how that is strained, and then how what happens between he and his wife affects that relationship and where that goes. That's another big issue I have, is they set something up in episode 1, or they give you a reveal of sorts, and there is a story there to explore, and there is an element that is mysterious, and you're just sitting back wondering all throughout the show. And sure, we're going to have future seasons. Netflix, they put a lot of money into this, and I guarantee it's going to get views. But there was nothing from that story. It just kind of ends at that point, and they never really hit on it again. Kudrow's character comes back into play. It's less of a main role and more of a, oh, she's just in the background throughout the show, and that's fine. But I had some issues with that story progression. And then the comedy, sometimes the jokes just feel on the nose. I like the idea of bringing in pop culture references, and, you know, they're even talking about TikTok every now and then. I'm like, oh, I mean, that is kind of happening in real life, but they have Greatest Showman references. They talk about the MCU every now and then, and it just felt kind of shoehorned, and it doesn't make sense because it's not like Disney's paying them to talk about it. It's just like these jokes that they really wanted to land, and you can tell they're going for the gut punch. They even have those pauses after some of them are delivered, and nothing. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, I laughed less often than I thought I was going to laugh within the show, and there were multiple episodes that had an emotional punch to it that maybe I wasn't expecting, but didn't have the laughs. And that's fine if you can deliver on the story, but even the story was a bit sloppier than I would have wanted. Now, it does, I know I feel like I'm talking negatively, or at least more negative than people want. It does plant the seeds of something special in the future, and it does finally start to find its footing by the end of season 1, and I think this could be a show that gets off and running down the road. But as of now, I don't know if Space Force knows what it is, knows what it wants to be, especially when you look at the first few episodes. Episode 1 was kind of rough to get through. The pacing wasn't all there. The comedy really suffered in parts. It wasn't until the end of episode 2 I was finally like, okay, here's what this show could be. bit of a back and forth all throughout. By the time you get into episode 10, you are rooting for these characters. You're excited to see what happens next. But I can't help but to feel a bit disappointed from Space. I know. You guys know me, I like staying positive. Listen, even if you have a bit of a rough time getting through season 1 like I did, there is still so much hope for the future. Like I said, The Office didn't get off to the strongest start. Same with Parks and Rec. Space Force, while I feel less enthused as I did about those other 2 shows, I'm still holding out hope, and the budget is there, the CGI for the most part. There were a couple of moments where it looked bad, but overall, especially for a TV show, it looked really good. It looked cinematic. You had the music, you had the sweeping score in parts, very emotional storyline towards the end, and that relationship, especially that core relationship, but there are multiple pairings that I can't wait to explore a bit more, some things building up between characters, some intimacies that I can't wait to explore a bit more, and some questions that I definitely need answers to, but things that get me excited about the future of Space Force. But again, I just wish Season 1 delivered a bit more. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. As you know, we focus on Netflix streaming, HBO Max Now reviews on this channel. Some of those videos coming out later today. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to smash that thumbs up button. I am going a 6 out of 10, a 60% for Space Force. It feels like a reoccurring score for Netflix shows nowadays, but I still, in the last month or 2, I haven't found that show that's really rocked my world. But overall, some pretty solid shows, some shows that I'm really excited about for the future in Space Force, and ones that have underwhelmed, but nothing horrible, I guess. Netflix is always full of surprises. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I appreciate everything that you do. Stay tuned, because more stuff to talk about. Space Force Roadhouse.